How can you better lead the worship vocalists at your church? In this live training session, you're going to hear from one of our Academy members how he at his church trains vocal directors who then lead vocal leaders who then lead the vocalists on the team to help them sing better together, have better stage presence, be more unified, and a whole bunch of other benefits that you're going to learn in this live training session. This was recorded live in our Academy, where every month we give you a practical topical training session live with the opportunity to ask questions. And this is on top of our 10 in-depth courses and our live expert interviews, plus all of our done-for-you documents. So if you're interested in getting practical biblical training and support and guidance to help you improve your ministry, check out the Worship Ministry Training Academy for just $1 for 15 days. But let's dive into this live training on how to utilize vocal directors at your church.
I've been worship pastor here in Branson, Missouri for 10 years now. I have about 25 years of ministry experience. Started when I was age 13, actually, and started on drums like everybody does for their youth group and things like that.
Nice. Tell us about your church. Tell us about Bloom. Tell us about your worship team. What kind of context? I mean, like even what style of worship?
Yeah.
Describe what we're kind of diving into and how, because you're going to share how you lead your vocalists, but give us an overview of what type of ministry you have.
We're in a non-denominational church here at Bloom. I've got about 60 on our team, something like that. And I think there are 20 vocalists specifically, and 3 going through onboarding, I think, at the moment to get onto the platform. There's all different types of worship ministries and things like that. We're probably a cross in between kind of very straightforward worship where everything's planned out, and then you have your other side, which is like your IHOP-y sort of like flow. We're probably somewhere in the middle of that, where we allow flow moments and things like that. Does that answer your question, Alex? Is there
And your church is like, I think you said it's around 1,000 or more in size, right?
Yeah, about 1,000 people.
Yeah, and so 60 people on your team, 20 vocalists, a few onboarding. We could get into a whole discussion about onboarding, but I will hold back my questions about that. Let's talk about this vocal director origin. Like, what's the origin story of how vocal directors came to be? You've been there, you said, how many years?
10 years.
10 years. At what point did you say, we need to put vocal directors over other singers? And by the way, can you just define what a vocal director is?
Yeah.
Slightly? Don't overdo it, because we're going to dig into that more, but just what is a vocal director in a general sense?
So I'll tell you, about 6 years ago, I was doing rehearsals, and if you guys are a musician, an instrumentalist, you're mainly focused on the band. And I was noticing, per usual, I'm focused on the band and dynamics and the number system, and the vocalists were just kind of standing there, like, what's going on? I don't, they're just kind of standing there. And one of them came up to me and they were very like, why are we even here?
Mm-hmm.
You're just focused on the band. Like, why are we even here? And that was a jarring moment for me. And she's still on my team, actually. And I began to think about how I can honor their time and honor them so much better. And so the vocalist just kind of stood around for like a half an hour, and it was like, when is it time to sing? I don't know what's going on. And then, they can listen to the song, but they don't know exactly in my head, because in my brain, I'm like, I actually want you to come in here, but the album says come in here. And there's all these different pieces here. And, there was these notes that I would put in, but sometimes I would change them on the fly and things like that. And so finally, we just got to a point where I was like, I need someone to lead this team. I can't do that. I can't lead the band, and I can't lead these vocalists very well at the same exact time. Because I don't know about your guys' churches, but like, we have 7 vocalists on the platform at the same time. So I don't have like me and then 2 others. It's me and then 6 others. So there's a lot of just like chitter chatter and all the things going around. So finally, we just decided to separate the vocalist out. Say, hey, I want one of you just over here. And this was before the vocal director piece. It was like, hey, I want you to just take this team in the back and just go practice the songs yourself. And what that developed and what that became was a place where they could ask questions. And then finally I was like, okay, so you're really good at this. and this person, you're really, really great at this. Would you like to just lead the vocalists? Could you just lead them? They can ask you questions and things like that. So that's the origin. That's how it came, because there was so much pressure that was happening between just trying to lead both groups at the same exact time. And the vocal director's job is to lead those vocalists. They lead them on Thursday, they lead them before Thursdays, after Thursdays, Sunday morning sound check, all of those things. So they actually lead those vocalists, not just on a Thursday on the platform, they actually lead them throughout the week.
Mm. I have so many questions, and I'm sure the people watching do as well. So guys, feel free if you want to type in your questions into the chat, and I'll just toss them over to Mike. I'm sure he can see them as well. And then again, like I said, at the end, we will do a open conversation. But one of the questions I have is, if you're sending your vocalists to the back, are they ever practicing with the band? Is it like first they do half a rehearsal in the back and then they come back with the band, or how is that working?
Yeah, so we have a midweek rehearsal. We have a team night every week at 7:00. So from 7 to 7:30, we call it team night, and everybody comes together. And then from 7:30 to about 8, the vocalists are in a different room in the back. I have a whole setup on that room on how the vocal leader or vocal director can plug in, their phone. I've got a spot for them to plug in their phone. I've got a place where they can, they know how to work the speakers that are it's in our kids' gathering room. Essentially, it's our kids' space. And so, yes, their first half hour is just the vocalist asking any questions, clarifying things. And then specifically, I've already spoken to the vocal director that night or that day, and with any of their questions. So they already know my expectations going in. Hey, I want you to make sure you sing this, sing this, sing this. And then their job is just to communicate it during that half hour. And if there's any questions, hey, I really, I heard the part in Planning Center, but I really just couldn't figure out, okay, cool, let's go over that part. And they'll run the songs probably a couple times, and then they'll come out and meet us at 8:00.
And then do a run through with the band.
8 to 9, yep.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm kind of jumping ahead on some of the questions, but I think it'll naturally just progress the way it should. As they practice in the back, are they going through the whole song, or are they going through just parts of the songs to get the harmonies tight? And then the structure of the songs is then just get on stage and listen to where the band's going and listen to the little in-ear lady give you the structure? Or is it like practice all of the songs structured in the back the way that they're going to be played on stage?
Practice them the way they're going to be played on the platform, because they already know my expectations going in. Sometimes they don't need that, though. Like we're doing More Than Able, by Elevation. That's a interesting song when it comes to the vocal piece, to be able to, hey, you sing here and you sing here, and what harmony part, and this is actually unison in this section, and then it's 2-part and 3, and all of these things. So that can be a little bit difficult. But if you're doing something like, something from Hillsong that is an hot button topic, whatever, if you're doing a song like that, you may not need as much coaching or whatever. And they just say, I just have a quick question on this part. And so it really depends on the songs, and it depends on the vocal director. It really depends on that. And so it can vary from week to week.
Yeah. And Joseph's asking, and Joseph, feel free to hop off mute and clarify, but he's asking, do you give training materials for your vocalists? And I'm guessing you mean, Joseph, like MP3s of what to sing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or just maybe even just like a general, like standard vocal parts, like harmony parts. I don't know if you do 3-part harmonies or just kind of.
Yeah. So I'm going to clarify something really quick. So the origin of the vocal director has morphed into, I have now one vocal director, and her name's Aloha, and now I have a bunch of vocal leaders. So I've created a leadership umbrella, essentially. So when I keep saying vocal leader and I'm changing it, it's that I have a vocal director who is in charge of all of the other vocal leaders, if that makes sense. The vocal leaders are the ones who lead those teams on their week that they're scheduled. Okay. So the vocal director, my top leadership position, she's on my leadership team. I sent her the song usually about a month and a half or 2 months in advance. And what she'll do is she'll go in and she'll listen to parts, and she'll start breaking down that song. And then what she'll do is she'll go in and record on top of the original recording, the part. Okay, she'll say, this song is more than able. This is the tenor part. She'll give a little bit of notes, and she's like, and I'll cue you along the way. So she'll start the song more than able, and she'll just start talking through the song. All right, guys, and we're making sure we're not singing here on this first verse, second verse. Okay, guys, here we go. Tenor part, and she'll start singing that tenor part on the chorus, right? And then she'll come back and say, hey, you know what? Mike doesn't want us here on that second verse. Great. We're gonna stay out here, and she'll just kind of give notes as she does. So that's the resource that they're getting for every single song. Now, it's usually tenor and soprano, and usually our altos, because I don't know about you, but there's a lot of songs where the alto is just melody these days. And so I don't feel forced to put 3-part harmony in everything. It's whatever my vocal director and whatever I've decided to say, okay, you know what, this would be great with just soprano here. You're not singing always. I'm never going to have people just blowing through the song. It's very, very specific. And that's all done through Planning Center. And like I said, through recordings. And then also there's a notes section in Planning Center if you use Planning Center. And that's all mapped out as well. So it would say verse 1, and it would say unison, verse 2, 2-part, verse 3, 3-part. And so it's all broken down for them.
And you just keep those saved per song on Planning Center?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just to clarify, your vocal director, Aloha,
yeah. She's the sweetest person on the planet.
I was going to say Aloha, but she's not on staff, right? She's a volunteer that you've raised up?
Yep.
Yes. So just so that everybody hears that, listening after the fact as well, like we don't have to hire everybody. Mike has done a good job of like imparting value to people and saying, I see this gift in you. Here's a need in the church. You are so talented at this. Would you be interested in fulfilling this function and leading in this God-given way? And Aloha is doing it, and people are blessed by it. And all the vocal leaders under her are also volunteers. So
correct.
I think that's an inspiring thing, because I think a lot of us in larger-ish churches are like, I need to hire someone. And in smaller churches, we're like, I can't hire anyone. Well, look at Mike's example and say, can I call somebody up into an opportunity? And I'm sure there are times where Aloha has vacation or this or that, and you just roll with it. So
she's a part of a pretty Southern Gospel 3-part trio, and she's gone all in August this month. So there are times like that, but she always does everything she needs to do to get everyone prepared, even if she can't sing on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you, I don't have anybody like on a staff here. Like I have 2 people. I have a production and an audio person who are stipend every week, and that's it. So like your job as a pastor, and especially worship pastor, is to raise up people. And being in a smaller church, like we're not a smaller church, but we're not a mega church either. One thing our pastors instilled is that you got to raise up leaders, right? We're called to make disciples, and to get your calling is irrevocable, like you said. And if you get somebody in that calling, it doesn't matter about the paycheck. No one's ever come to me and said, hey, I really need to get paid for what I'm doing. Maybe you've had that happen, but I haven't had that happen, because they have so much joy and so much purpose and so much passion for what they're doing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit more about the vocal director's role and what she's doing on a regular basis for you. Before we talk about that, I do also want to kind of mentally go back and say, one of the reasons why you're able to have volunteers that are so capable is because you are equipping them with expectations and a clear system and software that they need to do their job. And like you're making it easy for people to succeed by giving them like a system to follow. It's almost like, no offense to all of us humans, but it's almost like we're all robots or we're all AI, and we need the algorithm. We need like a programmer to tell us like, do function A, B, C, and D. And if D is this, then do that. And you just train somebody on that, and then they can just execute their program. And I think you've probably set that up with Aloha with some back and forth conversation, obviously, but you've given her a clear roadmap of what she needs to do each week. So with that said, what does she do every week?
So if you think about the vocal director as the umbrella, right, they're the leadership team. And then you have all of the vocal directors underneath them, or the vocal leader. Yeah, the vocal leader underneath them. I'll tell you, the vocal leader every week. Well, there's a couple things I want to share. So one thing when we did this was This now took a chaotic rehearsal to a structured rehearsal. So her job is to make sure that they have their own structured 30-minute rehearsal to make sure that they have any questions or anything like that. She's also the point of contact. I am no longer the point of contact for any vocal questions, which is so freeing. I'm telling you, when you've got somebody and they're like, I'll get a question one time and I'm like, I don't know, ask the vocal director, ask them the question. And then also, like, there's only one leader now. There's one person that's in charge of the vocalist every single week. Obviously me, myself, but like that person, she also brings accountability to be excellent. So like the awkward conversation sometimes of, hey, you didn't learn your part, and doesn't necessarily have to fall every single time onto the worship leader. It's also you're training up that vocal director to be able to have those, New Life calls it courageous conversations, hard conversations with people like, hey, I noticed you didn't have your part down. They are able to do that and keep those people accountable. And then also it just takes pressure off of me, takes pressure off the worship leader, takes pressure off of the worship, whoever's leading that week. And so what they do specifically, though, I guess I can go into the specifics of what they do. So each vocal leader, so we're talking about vocal leader, there's one for every week on my team. So I have my vocal director, and she's also a vocal leader who will lead one week. And then I have another vocal leader, and then another vocal leader, another vocal leader. So I have 4 right now, and each one of them has a week that they're assigned in the month. And so what they'll do is before Thursday rehearsal, they will make sure any arrangements are correct in Planning Center. So anything we've talked about, they'll go into Planning Center. I've given them access and the editor function and all that, so they can go into Planning Center and make sure that those are correct, make sure the parts are correct. So if Aloha may have misrecorded something on accident and somebody didn't catch it, they'll go make sure that that's correct and then re-record that part if need be. They are the ones who put any notes into Planning Center. So if there's a note from me and I will say, hey, I want to make sure that, we're going to double this bridge this week. They'll go in and put in the notes so the vocalist can see those notes that week. And then they meet with the worship leader ahead of time. So we get a phone call usually every week with that person, or if it's right before the rehearsal or something like that. So that's what they do before Thursday. And this is before midweek rehearsal. During the midweek rehearsal, they run the vocal rehearsal in that separate room on Thursday night. They run all the warm-ups and everything like that comes to it. And they answer any questions that may arrive. And they also, this is an interesting thing that we started doing, they also get with the audio engineer and figure out the stage plot. So where are people going to stand? I don't know about you, but not all of my vocalists are jumpers and all excited, and everything like that. And sometimes I have a lot of those, and sometimes I don't. And sometimes, you've got stage presence training and things like that and onboarding and all that. But like, you got to spread that energy out, right? And if I've got 7 vocalists and I have all my jumpers on one side and everything, and then I've got all my, I call it high energy, medium energy, and low energy. If I've got my low energy people all together, then it looks really awkward. So they'll get with the audio engineer and say, hey, this person's here, this person's here, this person's here. Here's Mike in the middle, this person, this person, this person. So that's one thing that they do beforehand. And then after Thursday rehearsal, they send an encouraging text message if there's any notes or anything like that. They usually do that on Saturday and say, hey, guys, we're looking forward to Sunday. It's going to be awesome. Really, really great. If you have any questions, reach out. Usually like a little scripture or something like that to give to people. And then on Sunday morning, they deal with any dress code issues.
Oh, nice.
If you have any dress code issues. I had somebody show up in these super tight pants, and our platform like sits like on very, very high. And so anyway, it was just really inappropriate with the lights on and things like that. So she dealt with that. I didn't have to. So they deal with any sort of dress code issues. And then any other questions arrive, and then they do vocal warm-ups on Sunday morning. So they actually meet separately again. So the band comes in super early, about 7 a.m. The vocals come in at about 7:15, and we do a quick sound check. Any questions from 7 to 7:30, and then those vocalists are together separately in the back from 7:15 to 7:30, and they're warming up their vocals.
That's amazing. So they're actually going together or whatever, right? Yeah. Do you have a set vocal warm up that you guys found that you like that you can recommend?
Yeah, there was one that Church of the Highlands put out. It's on their Grow website.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. We also have in the academy, guys, if you didn't know, we do have vocal warm-ups. I sometimes see some of you on that wiki page. It's like I see some because it shows you guys' faces and I'm like, yes, they're warming up their voice. So just if you didn't know, we do have vocal warm-ups in the academy, so check those out. But there was something you said, Mike. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, the jumpers. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept that you're actually thinking about how you're placing people and spacing out the energy on the stage. I never heard that. I never would have thought that. But I think that's really worth highlighting. Do you train people on stage presence when they're coming on the team? And if so, what does that look like?
Yes. So our onboarding process is now, don't jump, it's 12 weeks. So we've got 4 weeks of essentially like culture. So like they're doing the audition and then the next week is our team night. So we have auditions the fourth Thursday of every month. So from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And then that first week is actually just a all out team night where everyone who's in development, who is in the onboarding, they're the ones that are going to lead the team into worship. And that's like our big once a month sort of like big team night that goes really, really long until 8 o'clock. And we have to deal with all that. And then from there, they get 1 week of stage presence. They get 1 week of in-ear training. And then we have a touch point conversation and we say, hey, you know what? You've been on a worship team for a long time. Great. Let's move you forward. Perfect. Great. Let's put you on the team. If they're not ready, we highlight what they're not ready. Let's say they need more stage presence and they're just really uncomfortable. I have someone right now who has an amazing voice. She's got the in-ear piece, but she's really uncomfortable on stage. We'll spend the next 4 weeks working on stage presence specifically and have our team come in and coach, to be like, hey, here's what helped me. I was just like you, and we'll find people that are on that onboarding team to be able to do that. And so it can be up to 12 weeks essentially. But yes, very, very, very granular when it comes to it. I could say a lot about stage presence, and I'm not trying to make anybody robots or anything like that. I just want people to be comfortable in their own skin. And I always tell people, I say, hey, I watch you worship out in the audience. Like, how come you don't do that on platform? Well, I just can't get out of my head. So those are the things that we work on.
Yeah, it's really good. And guys, if you have specific questions about what else they do or how he's having them do it, please feel free to type those in the chat. So I do have a question. You have Aloha is kind of your main worship director, but you've identified and trained up some vocal leaders. So what does it look like to identify, like, what are you looking for in a good vocal leader? And the reason I ask that is because people who are listening now, they're probably in a small church and they're only going to be able to get one vocal leader or vocal director. What do you look for? What should they look for? What are the qualities of a good vocal leader?
Character and competency. I'm looking for character and I'm looking for competency. It does not have to be your quote unquote best vocalist who leads all the songs. It's not your star. I have somebody who is very, very good on my team who I would never put as a vocal leader, but Aloha, who is just beautifully solid on all the parts. She'll never lead a song. I don't think, unless something changes, she'll never lead a song. She's in her 50s and she just knows parts. She has character and she's competent. She is someone who shows up on time. She's consistent. She relationally invests into people and into the team. She comes in prepared and she knows everybody's parts. She's solid on parts. So if you can find someone who can know the tenor, know the soprano, know the alto, whatever those things are, as long as they know those parts and they love people, they can become a great vocal leader and then be able to lead those vocalists with confidence. That's one thing that I ran into with someone on my team, is that I put her in a position she wasn't ready for. And there were the higher echelon vocalists, let's say, that kind of just ran over her because she didn't have the confidence. I didn't resource her enough to give her the confidence to be able to lead those vocalists. So you got to be able to lead with confidence. And then you've also got to be a great follower. Like, I'm also looking for people who are going to support me, like as the worship pastor. Someone who's not going to always combat everything that I say. We just had a huddle last night where it was like, you want to respect your leaders and not question every single thing that you do across the way. So you're looking for someone like that. And then someone who is going to grow and then who is going to evaluate themselves musically and spiritually. So if you can have those qualities, that can be a great vocal leader or vocal director. I only had one vocal leader for a long time, and he was incredible. And he had all of those things. Now, he was a great vocalist, but it doesn't always have to be your star person.
Mm-hmm. One thing I don't think we really clarified is, like, how does the vocal director determine who's singing what? Because you said in Planning Center, you're putting like altos in here, sopranos in here, tenors in here, whatever. How is that being assigned? Do people always sing the same part? Is it based on their range? Does the vocal director really have to do any assigning or tweaking or flipping people's parts? What does the actual leadership of the musical part look like?
So they're scheduled in Planning Center as the part that they're going to sing. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really change. There are a couple people that are, can sing different parts, but I have people on my team who, if I scheduled them as soprano, they would really, really struggle. They're an alto through and through, and they're going to be able to sing that great. So that's really determined in auditions and making sure, and we'll like through auditions, we'll go through the piano and see what their range is. Like, no, just keep going up and up and figure out what their range is and say, okay, I think you could be both. I think you could be an alto. I think you could be a soprano, probably not a tenor. I do have someone on my team who can sing all three. Her range is insane. And so I'm able to schedule her. But in the scheduling piece, I already know what kind of, because they, if you use tags in Planning Center, you already know if they're an alto, soprano, or a tenor going in. And yes, there are times the vocal leader will have to flip. I think I had an incident about a month ago where the person just could not get the soprano part. They tried their best, and they have a great voice, but they just couldn't get this part. So the vocal director or the vocal leader who knew the part flipped them and said, hey, why don't you sing my part? Why don't you sing the melody and I'll sing your part?
Mm-hmm. And one last question about leading musically. On the stage, after they've practiced in the back and they know their parts and they come out and meet with the band, are there ever any corrections or questions that need to happen on that second rehearsal with the band where your vocal director is huddling up with your singers and talking through stuff? Or is it pretty much just, you guys know it, get up there, sing, and ask questions at the end?
It's a little bit of both. It depends on the group, but there will be times last night, actually, where they went in the back and they did their thing, and then they came out, and then I had changed something on the platform in that 30-minute span because I was like, you know what? This doesn't sound the way that I thought it was going to sound when I built it in Ableton Live. So from there, I would change something and then direct that toward the vocal director, and then they communicate with those people. And there's also something, Alex, I'm working on right now where I'm working on a background vocal music director. So somebody who's a BVMD essentially, and they're able to talk to all the vocalists and things like that in their microphone. And yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Wow. That could be confusing if you have the MD and the vocal director in your ears at the same time. Yeah, you'll have to update us on that one for sure. Joseph and Tiago and Chester, do you guys have any specific questions for Mike? Pop off mute and go for it.
You kind of hit it earlier. I just would want some clarification on like your rehearsal night. Could you run through again just the structure of your rehearsal times?
Yeah, so I'll start at the very, very beginning. So 6:00 is when onboarding is. So from 6 to 7, and then everybody who's in onboarding stays for our 7:00 team night huddle. And essentially, Alex, what I've been doing, which they love, I've been doing the worship devos that you post. So we've been doing that, and I've actually been because it's on paper, which is awesome. I've been able to give it to other people ahead of time and say, "Hey, you lead this huddle," which has been a fantastic thing. But yes, I lead. We do a huddle there from about 7 to 7:30. It's a time to. It's actually my favorite part about the rehearsal because, Alex, those questions are so inviting. And last night we talked about, it was week 30 and it was something about like respecting your leaders or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but there was a lot of different comments and a lot of different things that were really, really profound that people said. And there was a lot of things where someone said, man, this is exactly where I'm at, like at work right now. And I'm just having a hard time respecting this person and all of these things. And so anyway, to answer your question, so it goes from 6 o'clock onboarding, 7 o'clock huddle, and then 7:30 is when the vocals split into the back. And then from 7:30 to 8, we do either let the audio engineers do their thing. They pretty much have it dialed in at this point, but if there's any sort of changes, 7:30 to 8 will be that sound check and then running the set list with the band before the vocals get out.
Mm-hmm. Shameless plug, thank you for the Devos plug, but if you guys have access to that as well in the Academy, so please use those if you're not already. I do think they're really good as well. Obviously I wouldn't put out anything that I didn't fully think was great, but it just really makes things so much easier for you guys to spiritually lead the team. So I'm glad to hear that they've been beneficial, Mike. Thanks.
Well, it makes it to where you can raise other people up on your team, like giving them opportunity to be able to, there's people who I'm trying to raise up right now, and I say, hey, I want you to do the Devo tonight. Here it is. And it's so laid out. All I got to do is read it. All I got to do is ask the questions, just facilitate it. And then you even give them a prayer at the end. Like all I got to do is read that prayer, and so it's been a great way to raise up leaders as well.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
I do have a question. Mike, you said you have like 7 people on stage singing at the same time. So doing all the math, I think it's the leader, 2 tenors, 2 sopranos, 2 altos. Is it right?
Yes.
Good, because it's me singing here in my church and 3 more people every Sunday. But the group has been like getting bigger. I have more people coming. I have more people onboarding. I'm onboarding more people. So I just wanted to know how is these dynamics of having like 7 people at once, because I have never had this experience before. What else do you do on stage to make sure things work properly?
So I think one of the things is with the 7 people is it can feel too much, but you've got to get them both on the same page, right? So make sure that the tenor has the tenor in their ear and they're following each other. And I'll tell you this too, is that it's a great leadership opportunity as well. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll actually put somebody in onboarding who may not be right where they need to be yet and put them with a really strong vocalist, and they're that secondary tenor or their secondary soprano or secondary alto and things like that. And so resourcing them, being able to help them with that. The dynamic, it really depends. If you've got guys, I struggle, guys. I have 2 guys on my team, me and another dude, and he's a piano player. So with a lot of girls, it can be very, very a lot. And so I'll throw some BGVs in the track sometimes, to fill it out if I need to or whatever. But I think that it's a way to train up your vocalists a little bit, and then also the dynamic of having the camaraderie on the stage as well.
So I have just one more question. Can I, Alex?
Yeah, of course. This is for you guys, for sure.
Because here in Brazil, I mean, specifically my church, things are different from churches in America. Usually, there in America, you have like this lead vocalist,
right,
who is singing like all the melodies, and the church is following this guy. And the other vocalists, they come like as backup. Yeah, they do the harmonies and they just like flourish the whole thing. Here we do different. Like everybody sings like the melodies, and then we like just go to the harmonies while everybody's still singing. So
everyone's 7 people all the time. So everyone's singing all the time.
Usually it may change, but usually everybody's singing at the same time. That's why I'm really thinking about this sounding too much thing with having 7 people on stage.
Yeah, and 7 may not work for you. I mean, if that's the context of your church, and like if that's what your pastor desires, like, hey, we want this to sound full the whole entire time. For me, I've got sections of songs where it's just me singing, right? It's just a solo. It's just whoever's leading, like More Than Able. There's a whole section on the bridge where it's just a female solo and things like that. But it may not work in the context of your church to have that many vocalists, and that's okay, as long as you Holy Spirit's there, right? So I think It's really about your context of what you're doing and what your church is. Because yeah, you're right. 7 can be a lot. Like, 6 other people besides me, and most of them are female, can seem like a lot. But I've spread it out to where not everyone's going to sing the entire time.
Yeah. Basically, it's like the same thing of having 3 electric guitars playing all at the same time, the whole song. It doesn't go anywhere. You have to build it and stack it. It's like now you have more layers to play with, so you have to like slowly add and subtract layers to make it meaningful. Otherwise, if it's consistent the whole way through, it's just noise. And you know that, Tiago, you're a music teacher, right? So if you're going to have a lot of vocalists, you're going to need to add and subtract layers as the song grows or declines. Chester is asking, we don't have a vocal director, but we have 5 vocalists. How do we work together better? Do you have any suggestions, Mike?
Can you? Sorry, it's a really big thing for me, especially. I feel that as a tenor, and I sing the same parts as an alto, and we step over each other a lot. I mean, it's okay to have that harmony happening, but at the same time, it would just have so much more dynamic if I knew what part to sing. And a vocal director, I believe, would be so much better to tell us, hey, you should sing here, stop
Right.
here, don't sing there, sing this. And exactly what you're saying, I'm pretty much repeating what you're saying. But then if we don't have that, what would be the best thing for us? Should we say, hey, guys, after the musicians practice, should we take 20 minutes of our time to just practice vocals? Is that something that we should suggest to our worship pastor?
I mean, that could work, right? The reason I separate the time is because of exactly what you just said, right? So that you can ask questions and that you can get clarification, and maybe you pull your worship pastor into it, and say, hey, is there any way that maybe after rehearsal we could spend 20 minutes clarifying some things? Because I feel like I'm singing on top of this, but also for us, it's like, they already know what they're going to sing because I've already given them the resources for them to be able to know what the tenor part is and what the alto part is. And my vocal director, Aloha, has meticulously gone in to make sure that no one is singing anything on top of each other. And so she'll say, oh, that doesn't work. That clashes with this. So I'm not going to do that. And you may not have that, and that's okay. And you can get to that next level. But I think it's a great idea. I think, Chester, that's an amazing idea to be able to, if you need to do that right after rehearsal, and it's like, hey, let's work on this. Alex, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm hearing 2 parts of the solution. One, they need to be resourced. So the leadership needs to give them the resources they need. I always say the resources they need with the time they need to succeed, right? So that's the first half. And then the second half is, Chester, you probably have to have a conversation and say, hey, I really think we need to move in this direction, especially because the senior pastor's vision is to have also 6, 7, 8, 9 vocalists up front every service. And that's going to be a hot mess if 1, they don't have resources to know what to sing, and 2, they don't have anyone telling them what to do. It's just going to be noise in a sense. So
yeah, and the cool thing is Pastor Gannon is actually doing his best. He set aside Wednesdays for rehearsals, but unfortunately, we all are volunteers, and it's really hard for us to break away from our responsibilities midway. And we run ministries outside of worship ministry too. So it's really hard for rehearsals. So it's like we need more time maybe on a Sunday, or
maybe bring that up though. And maybe God would use you to be a solution bringer, and maybe even part of the solution. And then that will solve the problem long term, which will just make things better long term, right?
I'll tell you this, there's a lot of times where that midweek rehearsal gets canceled because we'll do an offsite team night or something like that. All those vocalists come in super early, right? And they come in, with the band at 7:00, and they'll just work from 7 to 7:30 by themselves. So if you can't make that midweek rehearsal work, there's opportunities there on your Sunday on the day of.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the parts, when the vocal director records the parts, she's not all on her own. So let's clarify that. Like, she's amazing, but I'm not saying, hey, go find the parts. It's go listen to the album, go grab, if you use Ableton Live, go download the multi-track, or if you use playback, go and use the playback app on an iPad and solo those background vocals and listen to what they're singing as a resource to have a starting point at least. But most of the time, background vocals will be, within the multi-tracks app will be soloed between an alto or soprano. Sometimes there's a BGVs or choir track that you can pick out parts and things like that. So I did want to clarify, she's not all on her own on that.
Yeah. I'd love to get any closing remarks from you, Mike, on vocal directors or anything you think we haven't covered that we should definitely hit on. And then we can begin wrapping it. If you guys still have questions, you can type them up in the thing, or maybe after you guys can DM Mike in the Academy or whatever. So do you have closing remarks, Mike?
Yeah, I think that one of the questions that I would want to know is how do you train and how do you equip those vocal directors and vocal leaders? Mm-hmm. So I have a handbook called The Vocal Director, and it has everything that we talked about, plus an 8-week process on what it looks like to train up those vocal directors and vocal leaders, and what all the shadowing looks like, and all of those sort of things. So that's something I think that if I was on this call, I want to know, okay, so how do I, now you talked about it, how do I train them up? How do I equip? How do I lead them? So I'll, Alex, I don't know how you want me to get this to you. I can.
Yeah, you can email it to me and I can put it in the Academy underneath this replay. I love that. I thank you for offering your hard work to the body.
Absolutely. But I think within that 8-week process, I'm always looking to make sure that I'm equipping them and resourcing them the best way possible, and putting them specifically, if you're going to start this process and you've got somebody in mind, them knowing down to the granular detail what they need to do. So for me, in my context and inside the book, is a setup and teardown process inside that kid's space. So how to connect your phone, how to turn on the speaker, how to do all of those things to make sure that they are prepared in those ways. I've also got down to how to listen, what to listen for. So the vocal leader for that week will go out in the house in the middle of our 8 to 9 session, and they'll listen to make sure, that they're singing and hearing things correctly. And I've got all of that, what to listen for, blend, tone, timing, vocal range dynamics, word phrasing, all of that sort of stuff. So it's a little 16-page little training manual that I give to all of my vocal leaders in training and everything's like that, to make sure that they're well equipped.
You're a next level leader, Mike. This is why I asked you to come on. I think the number one thing we can give to people to help them succeed is clarity. Clarity is like the key to being a good leader. And even this 16-page book that you've spent the time to think through each of these details, and then you give it to someone and make sure that they understand it, that's giving clarity, that's creating clarity, which allows that person to know how to succeed. Again, I keep going back to like training AI, but like in a sense, we are intelligent beings, and it's like we needed someone to give us the program that we're supposed to run. And that's what you're doing in each of these instances.
Well, I think the most frustrating thing for a volunteer is to just not know how to do something. You've asked them. So for instance, with auditions, I have an auditions team. And so I don't run auditions. I think that they see the worship pastor and then they get really intimidated by that. And so I have an auditions handbook, and all that sort of stuff, how to train people, what to look for in auditions. So as you're coming in the auditions team, there's also a training manual to make sure that everything's correct. Same thing with the music director, MD, and all of those sort of things. So I think just want to make sure that our volunteers who are volunteering their time, and some people, I don't know about you guys, but I've got people here that are volunteers that are here 30 hours a week, and they work hard at home and they work a job. My music director, who's a volunteer, is so busy. He's building at his own house. He works, 40-hour a week job, yet he's spending 20 hours a week with me. So very, very busy person. And it can be frustrating if you don't resource and equip and train your people to make sure that, they can do the best job that they can do. My final thoughts are, if you're going to do this process, make sure your vocal leader is connected to the team. You want to make sure someone is leading the team as a whole. We want to understand that this process is ultimately about making disciples. It's about raising people up. Yes, there is the music piece of it, which is great. But, if I've learned anything in the 25 years, is that music is 20% and 80% is the people piece. And so being a good vocal leader is about people, and ministry is about people. And when you step into a leadership position, you're bearing the weight and the responsibility that can be very heavy at times. And so if you're looking for somebody in that way, those are the characteristics and the qualities. If I go back to that, that's what I'm looking for. And so make sure they're connected with the team, and just take a step of faith. Trust God, trust them, correct along the way.
Yeah, so good. This has been so good. I'm going to use this as a podcast episode in 2024. So if you're cool with it, Joseph said he'd love to connect with you. Joseph, I'm going to show you. By the way, you guys live next to each other in Missouri, so that's the cool thing about the Academy. But I just want to quickly show you guys in the Academy how you can connect with each other. I'd love for the Academy just to become a central hub for worship leaders to like make connections, make friendships, make accountability partners, all that stuff. Even like I said, I'm starting to post job opportunities that people send to me. I'm posting those in the Academy. I'd love for the Academy just to become like this huge network of worship leaders around America that know each other and love each other. But obviously, you guys know you can send direct messages to each other in the Academy. So just, that's one way to do it. I'm sure Mike wouldn't mind giving you his email address, Joseph, as well. But don't forget that you can easily just contact each other right here. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but you can actually create a Zoom room in the Academy by clicking voice room, and just, you can name it, I don't know, test. And then you just invite Mike to the Zoom room by adding him here. And then we can have a Zoom inside the Academy, and you don't even have to like have Zoom installed on your computer. And it's a video call. So yeah, the Academy is like, I'm really stoked on what God's doing here. So I just wanted to show you guys some of these tools, because I think what happens is there's so many options in the Academy that you don't know about some of these things, right? The other thing too we talked about was in the docs section, in the templates section, you have the Team Devos right here. So if you guys didn't know where they are, that's where you can get the year's worth of Team Devos. So yeah, Mike, thank you for doing this. And guys, thanks for being with us today. Mike, thank you for dropping some mad wisdom, and I'm really grateful for your experience. All right, I hope this live training session was helpful to you. And if you're interested in being part of the Worship Ministry Training Academy, you can join for just $1 for 15 days to try it out. You'll get access to monthly live trainings like this one, live expert interviews with some of your favorite worship leaders, 10 in-depth courses on topics like set building, team building, musical excellence, running efficient rehearsals, group communication, and more, plus a supportive and active community that's going to give you the encouragement and support that you need to keep going in your ministry. So check it out, worshipministrytraining.com, $1 to try. Hope to meet you inside the Academy. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.